And welcome back. All right, moving right along. So I'm going to keep going with the uh, the struts here. I want to get all that rust area in, and then I'll switch to the orange, which will give me the rest of that kind of rusty feel that's going on in this. And then we'll be off to the races. Just do a little bit of shading on this. The stuff that's going on behind here, maybe. I have to figure it out as I go, I think, because doing the areas that are right behind here might be a good way to go too. But I think in the end I can just kind of get these uprights done, and it'll be in good shape. Now there is a really faint white highlight that runs across the front of the bar at the top, which I'll take care of as well. But that is going along well. And the cap at the very top of this must be stainless because it's almost chrome. So I'm assuming that that's either added on after or it is stainless. Somehow it was, not the same material. So how is your week going, everyone? Good, I hope? Again, I'll say it again, and I know I mentioned this before too. This painting here, there is no way that this would be getting done. With the workload that's going on right now, I've taken a bunch of commissions from a couple that were new, but I really enjoyed the idea of the project. But some of them are from just really great collectors, and try to take care of them so they kind of get the free pass, as far as, not taking as many commissions overall, really wanted to push my own stuff. But when these few collectors ask for things, I love to say yes. So I'm working on a few of those right now. But it'll be nice. Once I'm through those, then I can work on things like this. So the point is when I have a lot of other commissions that need to get done, things like this for myself get immediately pushed to the back burner. They get held off. So if I didn't have Open Studio, where I have to be, accountable and come up with a video each week for this, I would not be getting stuff done on this at all. Which, again, it goes back to the point I was making before. If you're struggling just trying to get something going, just do anything. Really. Even if it seems like it's only a half an hour a week, you're going to make progress, and it's going to kind of light the fire. So use this Open Studio as kind of an example of what you can get done even with just a half an hour a week. All right. So again, this is Blumber. This is the black with a little bit of umber mixed into it. Just trying to get the random pitting that's going on all over this. There's a lot of shading on this outside one. So again, I don't have to be super crazy about it. I just want to get that texture in. And again, there'll be that orange additional red oxide put on it, which is kind of an orange color to really make it feel like rust. I'll get that in a second. It's already going on down here. I don't know if I already did it or I can't really remember, but it's already there a little bit. So, all right. And the one of the very last things is that highlight that runs through the center of this pipe. Yeah, that's really good. That works. Works for me. I'm feeling that there's a little bit more yellow on this too. It's a little bit more yellow. So I think I'll start with that. I'll get that dirty yellow feel in there first, and then I'll work on the orange. So let's see what color I got in here. I have white in here, which is not going to work. So I think I mentioned this before too. I don't know if I mentioned it on Open Studio, but I did mention it with the other. What I use to clean out this paint is just straight rubbing alcohol. It breaks down the paint really, really well. Even this is like dried white paint at the bottom. It just breaks up that paint really, really well. So it's also inexpensive, and what's also great is it evaporates very quickly. So I spray this into a open container, and by the time I finish painting for the day, most of that is already evaporated off, and all I'm left with is a solid, the dirty paper towels at the bottom of the bucket. That's all that's left. So it's a great way to clean out the paint, and it's like I said, it does good by the environment too. All you're getting is the evaporating rubbing alcohol in the air, not dumping out, really dirty painty liquid, which can be bad. And then once I'm done with the alcohol, I just put a little bit of water in that and then just flush out the brush. That gets all the alcohol out because I don't want anything left in there. It will continue to break down any paint that's put into it, and not in a good way, not like the reducer. It just becomes separated from its binder. What was I thinking? Yellow. I need some yellow. I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put some reducer and 40/50. This is 1 to 2. I want this a little bit thicker, so that's what that is. It's 1 part 40/50 to 2 parts reducer. So it's a fairly thick material for this brush, for the Micron. And I'm going to grab some yellow ochre, which is starting to dry out on the palette, but that's okay. I'm looking at the camera. I adjusted the yellow balance in the palette cam, but I need to do it again. It's still awful golden over there, so it doesn't really give you an accurate look at the colors on the palette, and I really want that. So let's grab some more yellow ochre. I grabbed a little bit of brown by accident too there. It's brown right next to it, but for what I'm going to do here, it's totally okay. All I want to do is, oops, go away. There we go. All I want to do is kind of tint these pipes in certain areas to kind of jump up the yellow on it a little bit. Like especially down on the lower parts of it, it seems to be much brighter yellow than I have it. Oops, it's kind of going on heavy. Make sure I got paint coming out. I may need more yellow. I think this is too thin. So what I'm going to do, since I'm drying out on the palette there, I'm just going to add a drop to this. We'll just go for it. Make sure this is shaken up real well. And again, that's Detail Yellow Ochre 065. It's one of my favorite yellow colors. And even though I've mentioned this before, if you look at it, it doesn't really look yellow. It really sprays very vividly. You can get a feel for it in that little smudge to the right there on the barcode. See how yellow that is? It just, it is a really, really great color. And it's not like primary yellow. It's not like out of the box yellow, which can be overpowering in a lot of instances. For something like this where I'm going for subtlety, that yellow ochre is my, most of the times is my go-to yellow. Unless, of course, again, if I'm going for something really super bright like a sunset or, something man-made, then the Hansa yellow is a great way to go. All right, let me back this up in the brush. I just got to back flush that to get the really super thin stuff that's in the front of the brush mixed up. Now we should be in good shape. I should be able to see this a little bit better. Yeah, that's much better. Okay. So what I'm doing is down on these the bottom of these pipes, I'm just kind of intensifying the yellow. This will be calmed down a bunch when I go to put the shading in on it, but I'm just looking at the reference photo and it just down, especially down lower, it just feels a whole lot more yellow. In fact, this rear, the rear strut here is almost entirely covered in rust, so most of that yellow is going to be covered, but I really want to make sure I get enough of that in there so it reads the right way before I do all the shading. Because if I do all the shading And then I have to add the yellow to it. The yellow, even though it's transparent, is going to stand on top, and it's going to start to gray out the darker areas. So what's going to be really dark next to these springs, for instance, if I don't get the yellow in now and I go to spray the yellow over it, all those really nice dark areas are going to have this weird, it isn't even gray. It's the yellow sitting on top of the black, really. So getting this in now is much better. Because now when I go to spray all the black, you know, any overspray of this stuff will get covered. You'll never see it. So I'm just really just kind of bouncing back and forth between the reference photo and the painting to just kind of get this in the right way. There's not a whole ton of it, but there's just enough of it so that it pushes it more towards that yellow. Same thing on this strut, and these springs also have it too. And what's nice about the 4050, that clear, it really helps this gummy ochre color spray really, really nicely. Without that 4050, this yellow ochre tends to want to bind up in the brush and then just spit out, essentially. But this just acts as the 4050 acts as just a really, really nice carrier for the paint. Just really smooths it out well. Now the downside of it, and I think I've mentioned it a bunch of times before, is when you add 4050, the clear, to anything, it makes that color more transparent. And you know what? I'm like losing air pressure and I can't figure out why. The reason why is because my compressor's not on. Hooray! It actually was on earlier, but I finished painting and turned it off. So fire that up again. I'm like, why do I feel like I'm losing air pressure? Well, that's why. In my effort to conserve energy around here now, when I'm, you know, usually I'd leave the compressor on all day, and it's a fairly closed system. You know, it's airtight, the tank and the hoses and all that, but there is a little bit of air loss, so the compressor will cycle by itself even if I'm not working with it. So that's why I started turning it off, but I got to remember to turn it on. So just letting that charge up a minute. So grab your coffee and have a sip and get right back to it. Yeah. What's nice about this compressor is it's a little silent air compressor, and it develops its pressure very quickly. So I just turned it on and now it's all charged up. So I really do like it a lot. Plus it's easy to travel with this one too, which is great. I mean, it's fairly heavy, don't get me wrong, but it's not, you can hold it with one hand, you know. I mean, you can pick it up with one hand essentially, maybe not hold it in one hand. But it's great because it's silent. So when I go take this on trips, and it's just like having the studio compressor, the big studio compressor. It doesn't make any noise at all. All right, I'm feeling better about that. Oh, up here too, which you can't really see. I'll move this down a little bit. So this guy up here is a lot more yellow as well. I like it. No, so I lean back just to make sure I'm in the right ballpark, and I really feel like that's looking good. All right, so next up is the orange. Now, same thing with the orange, and I know I've mentioned this a bunch of times before. You would think that, you know, orange is orange, you know, this is the go-to. It's really not for me. It's actually red oxide. Red oxide is this wonderful rusty orange color, and again, you can pick up a tiny bit of that on those letters. It looks like it's, you know, like a deep rust color, but it's not. It comes out as this very brilliant orange. Really super nice color. In fact, I need to reorder this. It's one of the colors I go through a lot. So this bottle is almost empty, and what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to clean out the brush. So the yellow ochre is still in there. I'm going to add just straight up. Well, I say straight up, but here's the deal. With this down the end of the, because I'm a cheap guy, what I do is when it gets right down to the bottom of the paint, I'll add 40-50 and reducer to it to loosen it up again. It's the only time I'll do that, just at the end of the bottle, so I can get everything out of it. So when I added this into the airbrush, it was already really thin, so I don't have to add any more reducer to this. I may to help the flow a little bit, but for the most part, at this point with this stuff, I can use it right out of the bottle. All right, so we're going to mix all that together, whatever's left at the bottom, and that. Yeah, I think I am going to add some reducer, because even that is fairly thick and definitely strong, and there's a big chunk of something in there too. So I'm going to add a little bit of 4050 and 4011 to it, kind of help it along. Again, this is earthy, you know, these orangey, earthy colors, browns, yellows, red, oranges and stuff. They also don't spray very well. The pigments seem to be really gummy, so they tend to clog up a lot. They tend to be kind of sluggish through the airbrush, so that 4050 really helps. Okay. Now I added the 4050 because I want a lot of control over this. Get you in a little closer, I think. Can I get you a little closer? Yep, I can. Okay. So what I'm going to do, and I did some of it down here already, is I'm just going to use this orange and kind of halo around some of those scratch marks. Not crazy, I just want to get a little bit of it, just a tinge of that orange color. And that really sets up that feeling of oxidation through this thing. I don't want to go nuts with this, because this is, again, red oxide is a really brilliant orange, so I don't want to go crazy with this and just spray the whole thing. I'm really just kind of doing little dots in different areas. I'm just kind of skipping around, so it's not one solid mass. It doesn't really happen up on the top here, it just seems to be happening more down the bottom, so I'm just going to kind of keep doing that. It doesn't take much at all. There's a little bit on this crossbar, but again, not overly too much. Clean up that bowl too. All right, that looks really good. All right, so the next step is I can still use this orange, because what I need is a kind of a dirty brown color to start shading. The dirty brown color is going to go on before the black. The black is nice because, again, I think I mentioned it, the black has some brown in it. It's a warm black. So first thing I'm going to do is start with black and see what I come out with by adding black to this color. And that looks really good. It's kind of a really dark, dirty orange, which is actually really, really good. So the thing of this is, though, with all that black in it, I definitely need to reduce this a little bit more. So I'm going to do that right now, because I really want this to flow with a bunch of control as well. I don't care if it's super transparent, because I'll build it up. Yeah, that's nice. That's just like a kind of a dirty chocolate, I guess. Yeah, that's nice. Perfect. Now, what's left in the brush right now, and the front end of the brush is all red oxide, so I got to back that into the brush here. And then I'll spray out a little bit of it too, just to make sure I get all that straight red oxide out of there. Now I have this brown in the brush. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start establishing those edges. So like here. Again, this is really transparent, but that's seriously okay. I'd much rather build this up slowly than have this just get nailed. Like that. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, that's good. All right, so now that I've got the edge on there, now I can kind of just freehand it, because the edge is already set essentially, so I'm in good shape there. Now this is not quite dark enough to do some of the details, but it is dark enough to do, well, there we go. It is dark enough to do some of the details, but it's not dark enough to do all of the details, so I guess that's where I was going with that. And I'm also keeping an eye on this too, because I'm feeling that even though I added that black to it, it might still be a little bit too orange. So I'm really keeping an eye on it, especially down in the darker areas, to see how it builds up. And see how it's building up kind of orangey. That's probably a little bit too orange, so I'm going to add a little bit more black to this. But instead of going for the palette this time, I'm just going to add the pre-reduced black. This is 1 to 20. So I'll do 2 drops of this, no, 3 drops of this. Try that. And that should be good. That'll add more of a brown cast to this and darken it up a little bit more. But it'll still give me, I don't know if you can see it in the cup because of the way that it is, but it still gives me this chocolatey brown color. I could have got to this color as well by mixing up brown and a little bit of black and maybe some green or something like that. So, you know, there are different paths to get to the same color depending on what's in the brush. I just happen to have the red oxide in the brush. So that was a good base to start with. But like I said, there are different ways to get to the same color for sure. Okay. Moving on. Try this one, and I picked the darkest areas to see what it's going to look like, because those areas need to be at saturation anyway, so I can take my time and build those up to see what it looks like. As you didn't see me doing that because it was off the screen because you guys are too close. Sorry about that. I'll work it down on this part here. So now that it's darker, as I really develop that, yeah, that's nice. So now as I develop that darker, it has a real, yeah, it has a real nice cast to it, which is good. That. So with this color now, because I added a little bit more black to it, now I can start to use this to finish the shape of the corrosion that's on there. So okay, the paintbrush really added that stipply texture that would be difficult to do with the airbrush, but now with the airbrush I can really like kind of refine those rust shapes. Some of them are just, you know, solid, meaning they have edges to them. Some of them are, you know, more wispy, like these guys down here, meaning they're not really a solid shape. They're just made up of a bunch of little dots. So this intermediate color, this kind of brownish orangey color, can really kind of bridge the gap between those paintbrush details and the airbrush stuff. And again, the goal is to have a painting in the end that just looks like a good painting. I don't want the techniques to be standing out too loudly. I have some highlights to put down on these guys here too. I'll try to get to that before we move out of this area completely, only because if I do, sometimes, you know, if I don't have a list of things to do, like things I notice that I miss, then I will certainly forget them. And things like those really bright, like last highlights really make, you know, really sell the deal. So to forget to put those in is usually bad. Definitely doesn't give you much in the end. All right, so moving up the fork a little bit. Same thing with leaning back too. You know, every once in a while I lean back to make sure I'm not getting kind of tunnel vision on this. Let's get that to not do that. My hand's definitely in the way. All right, how am I going to do this? I can spin it so we don't have hand in the way the whole time. And I'm going to move the camera too, because you guys are way off the side here. Let's get you more down. Down at this, like this might be better. Here we go. Okay. So again, I'll set the edge up here with the stencil. And you know, again, this paint is really thin, so it's forcing me to move slowly to apply these layers in multiple thin layers, and that is totally okay. I love it. That's totally okay. I'd rather move slow through this. There's really no prize for getting this done, you know, any faster than it needs to get done. So now once the edge is set, now I can kind of go in with the airbrush and just continue that kind of scumbly texture, rusty type of feel. And because I already set that edge, that's locked in. That's just nice and sharp. I mean, if I hit it, you know, with a little bit of overspray, that's okay too. It blends it together. But the overall feel of that is the straight, you know, the straightness of the pipe, which is great. So again, it's not one or the other. It's always both, you know. You take the strengths from all the tools that you're using, whether it's pencil or paintbrush or cut paper or whatever it is, you know, whatever the strength is of that particular thing is what you use to get things done. All right, so the clip that's right here is all this color. So I'm gonna kind of lock in the top of that clip right now. I could probably redefine it with the paintbrush a little bit, but I'll get the tone in now. So that's the other way to do it too. So I added the sharp line just a second ago right there with the template, and then I went in and backfilled it with the airbrush. In this instance, I'll show you what I'm doing. I kind of backfilled it, but I need the top edge on that, so I can just go in after and put that in as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like sharp edge and then soft airbrush. It can be the opposite, you know, soft airbrush and then you add the hard edge. Whatever really works. I want to make sure, oh, there's a light band on it too, so this is just a paintbrush, and again, this is the same color, just a little bit of brown and black, and oh, actually that dug through it. That's interesting, which is okay, which is what I was going to do anyway. That's interesting. I've never seen that happen before, where the wet paint dug through the layer below. That was more of a solvent type trick. All right, so we get that edge in with the paintbrush, and again, it can be kind of dirty a little bit, or not so clean, but that works too. Good. And yeah, just continuing on. So again, there's a cable that runs down this pipe as well. I'll get that at the end or near the end. Maybe at the beginning of the next episode, I'll get that cable in. Now it's probably a pretty good time to do that because it also kind of plays with all the shading that's going on there. So if I put all the shading in and then put the cable in, then shade the cable, now they're really two separate things and won't look really the way it should. So I'll put the cable in. We'll start the next episode putting the cable in, I think, which just runs right down along here and it keeps going. This is a really nice color to kind of mess with this because, again, I can do two things. I can define shapes with it, you know, because it's dark enough. But I can also, like I'm doing on the springs here, I can shade bigger areas with this as well. It's just a nice color. Again, it's Son of Lumber, which is burnt umber and black. This is red oxide and black, which is, you know, comes up with a similar type of phenomenon. All right, let me back you guys up a little bit. I'll show you where we're at, and then we come back next week. I'll start by dropping in the cable that runs down the side, and we'll finish this up. So yeah, we're moving quick through this now. So we'll have the front forks done probably in the next couple episodes. All right, so that's what I got. So for Steve Leahy and Open Studio, thanks for coming by. Please hit that like and subscribe, and if the feeling takes you, please share it as well. If you know someone who might enjoy this as well, I really appreciate it. All right, guys. I will catch you guys all on the next one. Have a good one.